Hi, welcome to episode 443 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarn and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, October 2nd. We are sort of officially in fall now, I guess actually as of September 22nd. And I'm feeling a little bit of that mojo, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So I hope that you are doing well. My week is a little bit up in the air. My job has changed somewhat. I'm still working for Missouri Star, but they've kind of moved me between departments. So I have all sorts of information in my brain, and I'm getting to learn a slightly different part of the business. So that is what my brain is working on this week. I do have some progress to show you on a couple of whips. I have one tiny FO that I just needed to make, and I have a finished spin and a spin in progress. So let's start first with the tea. I've been terrible about talking about the tea at the front end, and I don't know why, because it was always the corner of knit and tea. But here goes. Today I am drinking Black Cat tea. It is from Friday Afternoon Tea, which is fridaytea.com. And she does lovely fandom teas and all kinds of things. And this is Black Cat. It's got oolong tea, lemon peel, pomegranate seeds, and natural vanilla flavoring. So that I bought from her a while ago, and actually I finished it off today. I'm very excited. But in keeping with the theme, I'm also in my Hello Kitty in her black spider costume mug. It's October. I only feel like I use the Halloween stuff during October. So you're probably going to see this mug most of the month, and it's going to have a variety of different teas in it. So I am feeling fall-like with my Black Cat tea. And that's great. It's really lemony. So I like that. Okay, so let's start talking about the knits and spins. I have no sewing content for this week. Sewing is on a bit of a micro pause just because I'm between projects and I don't know what I'm going to do next. I have some fabric. I have some fabric coming for a review. And which also reminds me, I have a book to review this time, and I will be doing a giveaway at the end for that. So actually, I'm going to go pause and get that because I forgot to bring it in with me, and then I will talk about knitting. So hold just a moment, and I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. So first I'm going to talk about my knitting, then I'll talk about my spinning, and then I will do a brief review of the book, and then there will be a giveaway. So let's get started. So the first thing that I have to show you is a finished object. It was a tiny finished object, and I don't know specifically why I felt the need to cast it on, but I did. And that is, I made a tiny little pumpkin. So there are lots of pumpkin patterns out there, and I found mine on Ravelry. It was a free pattern. It will be linked in the show notes, which are at thecornerofknitandtea.com, under this episode, which is 443. A little bit of recall, and I can't remember the name of the pattern. It's something cute like hand knitted pumpkins, and like I said, it was a freebie pattern, and I just used a little bit of my handspun. It's actually some old handspun that I made a sweater out of a long time ago. And so you basically sort of knit a ball, as it were, and then you use sock yarn. It calls for DK weight on size 2.75 millimeter, which I think is a US 2. And so, no, a US 2 is 3.0, so 2.75 is a 1.5, I'm guessing, because 2.25 is 2 is 0, 2.25 is 1, 1.5 is probably 2.75. But I think I used size 3. And my handspun is not any specific weight, but it's fine. Basically, you want to use something for the pumpkin that's a little bit of a heavier weight, and you want to knit it at a fairly tight gauge so that your stuffing doesn't show through. That's the way you knit any kind of little toy or amigurumi or any of those kinds of things. You knit them kind of at a dense gauge. And then you use fingering weight sock yarn to basically sew little loops in here and create kind of the gores in the pumpkin, and so that's what kind of creates the little ridges and whatnot. So, and then I just went outside and found a stick in my yard and broke off a small piece of it, and you kind of, you just kind of put the stick in where you're tightening up the top bit. And so it's not in there real solidly. If I pick it up, I could pull it out. But it's kind of held in there a little bit with tension. And so I guess I could always replace it if I needed to. So it's super cute. It was funny because I grabbed up a bunch of different hand spun in kind of reds and oranges and browns that would work. And I was like, I'm going to make a whole bunch of these. And I made one and I'm like, okay, I'm done. So apparently it was something that I wanted and needed to get out of my system. But once I got it out of my system, I was good. So I don't know if I'll make any more. It took me about an hour, between an hour and a half and 2 hours to finish it. Super easy. Basically, you cast on at the bottom, you kind of, you build out and then you decrease in, and that gives you kind of like a globe, which you fill with polyfill, and then you kind of sew it up towards the top. You do your last few decrease rounds after you fill it up, and then it's all set. So it's super cute. It's sitting here on my desk with me. I don't know if it will go out to the mantle or if it will stay in here, but I'm enjoying it. It's giving me a little bit of fall spirit. So let's talk about the next two projects. The first project that I'm going to talk about are the socks that are currently on the needles. There's not a lot to say about them except that I am almost done with sock one. So these are socks for my niece for the holidays, and she loves teals. And last week I showed you I had just a little bit of the cuff done, and now at this point I am basically down towards the toe. I still have a little bit more foot to do, and then I will decrease for the toe, and I'll do the toe in the darker teal. So this is a sock set from, let me see if I put the, I don't know if I put the tag in here. I'm not sure that I did. It is a sock set from New Garden Yarns, and it is one of her perennial bases, and it is her sock weight, and if I remember correctly, it's an 80-20, I think. No, it's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon, and it came with a couple little minis, one of which is kind of this dark teal, one of which is this pink, and then the main skein is kind of this speckly blue, and it was called a snow day bundle, and I know that the teal is called Burr, and this one is called Cheeky, so like red cheeks out in the snow, and I can't remember what the main color was called, but it's knitting up into a beautiful little sock. I am just doing 56 stitches on US zeros, and starting with a 2x2 rib at the top, knitting the cuff, and then a slip stitch heel flap and gusset, and then down to a rounded toe. So I will probably finish these tonight and get started right away on the second one. Again, I am making these for the holidays for my niece and nephew and my mom even, and we celebrate our holidays kind of all at Thanksgiving, so we'll be doing that. So I have a little bit of an abbreviated timetable on which to finish these, but I'm doing pretty well. I have my nephew's socks already done. Those were the pink socks I did about a month ago, and then I'll finish her blue socks probably in the next week or two, and then I will just work on my mom's socks. My mom's feet are fairly tiny, and then I have 2 hats to knit, and then I think I'm done with knitting for my family. I'm not going to make stuff for everyone, and honestly, my mom's probably not getting socks as a holiday gift. She's probably just getting socks because she asked for them, but the kids, I always give them socks and hats and things for the holidays. So, and I have some other toys. I forgot that when we traveled earlier this year, I bought them souvenirs. So I have t-shirts and a few toys and some other things to kind of fill out a small package for them. So I try not to go overboard on stuff, and often I don't get them toys because all of their other family members do. So usually I just knit, but because we traveled, we found these really cute. They're like paper and wood puzzles, 3D puzzles to put together of some of the animals in New Zealand, like the kiwi bird and the tutara, which is one of the lizards that's down there. And so we got them these really cute puzzle things that they can kind of 3D put together. So I thought that would be kind of fun since we were traveling. Like I said, I do try not to get them a ton of, you know, plastic toys and things, but they are getting older and they're developing hobbies and things that they like to do. And actually, I'm not getting Roxy anything knitting for now. I think I'm going to wait and see how she's going with it. She loves crafting. She loves crafting in all forms, but she hasn't really like picked one to stick with it, and I don't want to overwhelm her. So we shall see. So the final project, well, that's not true. The next project that I'm working on that I told you about is I am working on a colorwork pullover. And that is a sample for Zen Yarn Garden, and I'm knitting that up for them in their superfine fingering base, which is 90% superfine superwash merino and 10% nylon, and I am using a colorway called Teal. And then I am using a colorway called Teal Spatter, and Spatter is the name that they give to their speckled colorways. So these are the two colorways that I am using, and I am knitting the Antique Flora pattern by Wool and Pine. I am knitting it as written, although I have adjusted my needle sizes just to get gauge for what is appropriate, and I have been working on this basically since I talked to you last week. I don't think I hadn't cast this on last week, and I had done some gauge swatches and talked to you a little bit about the differences, and I've gotten fairly far. I am not all the way through the yoke. I've had to take this one kind of nice and slow, partially I think because it's yoke pattern, and so I've got all these increases in the yoke, so I'm getting more and more and more stitches on the needle, and partially because I find colorwork yokes difficult. I'm not sure why that is. Generally, I find most things in knitting fairly easy, and I enjoy doing them, but for some reason, I have a little bit of trouble with colorwork yokes. I don't know if it's because it's so much colorwork in the round. I don't have as much of a problem knitting colorwork in the round on, say, hats or socks or scarves. And actually, the sweater that I'm wearing, I did not knit. It is lovely. It is the Soldotna by Caitlin Hunter, and it was not exactly knit for me. My friend in the pandemic, one of my knitting buddies, Anna, she's actually been on the show before. In the pandemic, she kind of glommed onto the Soldotna pattern, and she had all these like single skeins of worsted and DK in her stash. And basically, you need 2 skeins of whatever the background body color is going to be. But then for all the color work, you can get away with just small partial skeins. And so she was kind of doing a stash cleaning, and she made a million versions of this. I'm not kidding when I say she literally has. Well, she has 3 or 4 that are just regular. She made a Christmas version last year. She's working on a Halloween version now. And she started to make this one, and she has bright pink hair. And she put it on, and she was like, these are not really my colors. And I was like, that's funny because they're totally my colors. And she was like, yep, it's your sweater. So she finished knitting it and gave it to me. And I actually bought her some of the yarn to make her Christmas Soldotna. Or I think I did. I can't even remember anymore. I wanted to. I can't remember if she let me. But I have spun her some hand spun, and so we have a pretty steady back and forth of things. And if not, then she should let me know, because I would be happy to contribute to another Soldotna or hand spin more yarn for her. So yeah, so I find colorwork yokes a little bit challenging because for some reason I find it a little bit difficult to regulate my color work. So what I have done is I've broken this down, and honestly I'm just doing 5 or 6 rows a night, and it's making it manageable for me. It means that my hands don't get too tired, and I don't get screwed up on tension, and I don't make mistakes in the pattern, and that has been really nice. So to show you where I am so far, this is where I am. So I'm not going to give away too much. The pattern is a top-down yoke. I guess I should say I made a slight modification on the ribbing up at the top because it called for really, really long ribbing, and I prefer a little bit of a crew neck, and I suspect that the people who may make this from the kit might not want to do a real tall neck. So what I did is I modified that and I made it a little bit shorter, and then I have worked about, I want to say so I'm not super far in the chart because the chart is actually really long, and it goes beyond the yoke to where you're continuing to do the chart below the separation for the sleeves. So I would say I'm between 15 and 20 rows away from the separation of the sleeves, and then there's a little bit more after that. And it is kind of pomegranates and flowers and antique scrolling a little bit. And I'm going to tell you a secret, and unfortunately you may never be able to see this the same way again. It also kind of looks like Cthulhu to me, and my husband and I kind of both agreed on that, and I shouldn't say it. It's a lovely, lovely pattern, and I would totally knit it for myself. It just makes me laugh because it almost looks like these are the eyes and these are the tentacly appendages. So yeah, so now you're not going to be able to see it anything else. But it's kind of floral. It's called the Antique Flora by Wool and Pine, and I have talked about the specifics of this. I am using fingering held double. The original pattern calls for the main color to be DK and fingering held double to be the chart, and I'm holding fingering doubled both. So I will use a little bit more yardage in this sweater, but our concern was that Zen Yarn Gardens DK and their fingering, it wasn't quite gonna match up in terms of gauge, and so to keep everything really similar, we decided to just use the same base yarn for everything. So I'm just double stranding one and double stranding the other, and I'm using multiple needle sizes because I have one needle size for the ribbing. I have one needle size for working in the double-stranded main color when I am not doing color work, and then I have another needle size for when I am doing color work. So I'm hoping maybe I'll split for sleeves this week and maybe even get done with the color work, because I feel like once I get done with the color work, I'm going to zoom the rest of the body because it's just stockinette and ribbing down to the waist, and then I will pick back up for the sleeves, and then the sleeves will have a little bit of color work, because remember I said the color work extends below the sleeve separation, so the sleeves will have a little bit of color work and then just plain sleeves. So I feel like when I get to the plain section of this, I'm just going to zoom along because I won't limit myself to 5 rounds a night or 7 rounds a night or whatever. But I'm really pleased with my tension thus far. And so I'm going to continue doing it in small bites just so that I have, so that I can kind of maintain what I've got going so far. And luckily I only have, I think, 2 more increase rounds. I have quite a few more rounds on the chart, but I only have 2 more increase rounds. So I'm almost to the max of where my stitches are. And once I get to where I think I'm going to separate for the sleeves, I will take it off and put it on tubing or waste yarn or extra needles and kind of lay it out and make sure that it is everything I need it to be in terms of length and whatnot, but so far I seem to be doing well on gauge. So that is the third project that I have going on. So I actually, well, I guess it's the second project in progress, the third project I've talked about. So on Saturday morning, my husband, who loves to go bike riding, he goes out for like 50-mile rides on Saturday morning. On Saturday morning, he went over to a coffee place a couple towns over. It's like about 10 miles away. And on the way back, he saw some signs. Because my friend Christine, who is Treasure Goddess Yarns, I've used her yarns several times on the podcast and in some sweaters and stuff. Most recently, I used it for the party top that I knit while I was in New Zealand earlier this year. Christine was having a yarn party. So Christine has this great piece of property where she's got her house, but she's also got 2 barns on the property, and she has some ducks and chickens and those kinds of things. But the other barn is basically her yarn business, and she recently was able to sort of retire from her full-time job and make dyeing her full-time job, and so now she is dyeing all kinds of yarn. Oh, the top that I knit this summer with the linen, that was hers as well. Why am I blinking right now? But it's the top by Justina Lorkowska that I knit in the coral linen. That was hers. It was the first time she had done bamboo linen. So she, every few months, every season, hosts a yarn party in her barn. So she uses her barn mostly for dyeing, but then she can also turn it into a little shop. And so she sets things up, and she has a couple other makers come in and usually provides like deli sandwiches, cold cuts, and chips and bottled water and whatnot. And you can go and you can hang out and knit and you can purchase, and it's super fun. And I had told myself I was not going to go this time because I have so much yarn. I mean, sable. That stash acquired beyond life expectancy. So I have way too many things, and because I am doing so much sample knitting and other knitting, I don't even get to all of my yarns. So I decided I wasn't going to go, and when I woke up, I decided I was going to go on a short bike ride, and because basically what my husband does is he'll go out on his long bike ride and do his like real hard exercising, and then he and I will go out, and I have an e-bike, and so I have only ridden it, well, Saturday was the third time, so I'm still getting to know it, and I didn't ride bikes much as a kid, so unfortunately I have a lot of fear as an adult of like falling over and killing myself. So we have been riding the bike, and mostly we've been going to parks and stuff, and not doing too much riding on roads. Anyway, so I wake up and he says to me, do you know who is responsible in the neighborhood for all the yarn party signs? And I was like, yes, that's Christine. And he was like, yeah, I know. And he said, how far is her house from here? And I said, I don't know, maybe like 5 miles. And he's like, we should ride over. And I was like, okay, but I wasn't planning to go to her party because I don't need anything. And he reiterates, we should ride over. And I said, but honey, if we go over, I'm going to need to buy something. And he goes, no, we should go over. So we hopped on our bikes. I put my credit card in my riding jersey, and we hopped on our bikes, and we rode 6.5 miles over to Christine's house. It was 6.5 miles because we didn't take the busiest road. We went on some side streets because I'm not real good on the bike. I'm still kind of wobbly, and I didn't want to be in like traffic. And so we rode the 6.5 miles over, and we went and I shopped, and I bought 2 skeins of yarn for a top that I had been eyeing for a while. And then we got back on our bikes and rode home. So what I have, and I even started it, is I bought 2 skeins of her Treasured Toes. I think it's Treasured Yak Toes. She has fun names for her. Okay, so this is the, it's Treasure Goddess yarn. This is Treasured Yak Toes sock yarn, 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, 10% nylon. So, and this is her label and her little, she's got her pirate sheep that says yarn. And I got it in Song of the Sirens colorway, which many of you may remember. That's the color that I knit my sweater in. I just love this color. It's kind of a burgundy color. But because this has yak in it, it is a darker yarn, and it takes... it's a darker base yarn, and so it takes the color differently, and it ends up with colors that are a little bit more moody and saturated. And so the other colorway that I got was From the Depths, She Rose. So I really like these two together. It's kind of a light and a dark. And what I really wanted to knit with this, and what I've been looking for 2 skeins to knit with, what is the Applesauce Top by Noriko Chan. And she, it is a 2-toned tank top, or you can make it with little sleeves. And the deal is, it is kind of a wrap top. So it's a deep V-neck with the wraps that cross in the front. And one wrap is one color, and one wrap is the other color. And then the back in between is striped with the 2 colors. So I thought these 2 colors go really, really nicely together, and it kind of gives you a dark in the front and a light in the front. And so I have started working on that. So I cast on, and the pattern is knit in pieces. It is a pattern that is available either on Noriko's website or on Ravelry. And so you knit the pattern in pieces. So you knit one side, and then you knit the other side, and then you knit the back, and then you kind of join them together and do some I-cord edging and some hems. And so I don't have very much done. I wound up the From the Depths She Rose, and I started, you start at the shoulder, you do a little bit of short row shaping, and then, oops, you do a little bit of short row shaping, and then you are starting to increase for that deep V-neck. And so this is still a ways to go. This is not a project that I expect to finish soon by any means, even though it is a tank top, and I'm going to try and eke it out with 800 yards. I think I'm a little bit short, so I'm going to try and do it, and then worst case scenario, I will buy another skein of the dark and use that for all my like trim and edging. So this is what I have so far. My guess is I'm going to pick this up and put this down quite a bit over the next several months. I have many more pressing things. This pattern came out just in the last month or 2, and I was really excited to knit it, and I realized that now I'm into fall knitting, and knitting a tank top is not really something that I need to do right away, because this is not something that I would wear like over a longer shirt or anything. This is definitely a tank top, or like a little almost sleeveless top. That's what this is. But my thought is that I'm going to go ahead and work on this in my free time, and I probably will be able to at some point finish knocking it out pretty easily, or it will wait till next spring and then I will pull it out and finish it. But I just really wanted to knit this, and it seemed like the perfect, I couldn't carry very many skeins, so I really could only buy 2, and it seemed like the perfect time to just go ahead and do it. So that is the surprise knitting project that I didn't expect to work on. I'll bring it back as I make progress, but I may not bring it back super often, because it may it may just kind of live in an in-between state until the seasons change again, because Nanny Swamo's around the corner. I mean, like, it was totally stupid to cast this on, but I just couldn't. This weekend, I guess it just had a little bit of like, I'm gonna show my knitting who's boss. I'm gonna make whatever I want. So, but I have plenty of things I need to be working on, because I also have a purple chicken this week. So let me do spinning real quick, because I see we're already at 22 minutes and I still have a book review to do. So I did finish spinning my kind of crazy wild spin, and this has not been washed yet, but it is around 300 yards. This was a nitty and color braid that was basically black and pink and teal and like a little bit of neon pop colors. You can see some yellow, there's some orange, there was also a little bit of green. I'm not finding green, let me see where, oh, here. We've got a little bit of green right there, and basically it just looks like highlighters and pink and black. So this spun up really nicely. Again, like I said, I plied it up on Thursday or Friday, and just pulled it off last night so that I could put something else on the wheel. And so I will wash this, and then it will be in the shop later this week. And yes, it really is that bright. It is definitely toned down by the dark colors in the braid, but it definitely has pops and pops of neon. This would be super fun. My guess is this is going to be around 300 yards of a Sport to DK weight. So, and that will go up in the shop later this week. And if you're interested, just keep an eye on my Instagram, because I always post on there when I put something new in the shop. So the next thing, I decided to pull a braid to work on next, and normally I am all about all the colors, but this week I decided to spin on something that's basically going to be a little semi-solid. This is a beautiful purple braid that I ordered from Kumasi a while ago. Kumasi is on Etsy, and well, she may have let me start again. Kumasi is on Etsy, and they may have discontinued posting on Etsy, because I know that they launched their own site in the last few months. And I bought some semi-solids from them a while ago. I did an orange at some point, and so this is the purple. And so it's got lavender and a little bit of hot pink or mauve, and a little bit, or like orchid even, and then like dark purples and violets and almost a purple black navy. So I just have lots and lots of different colors in this, but it will definitely be kind of more or less one tone. It will have some subtle variation knit up, but I am just spinning this on itself. I have the first half of it on the wheel and almost done. I tore it into tiny strips. I haven't decided whether I'm going to tear this into 2 strips or just spin this straight as it comes. So it will be a slightly fractal-ish spin, but given that it's a semi-solid, it's not going to have a ton of variation. I mean, you can see definitely some variation in the colors, but it will probably be overall kind of modeled and almost look like spins like this tend to look like, if you've ever worked with Malabrigo with their kettle dyed yarns, they're not one flat color. There's definitely some variation there, but there's not like a ton of different colors in it. It's just a little bit of variation in the hue and the intensity. So that is what I'm working on this week. So I was approached by Stitchcraft Marketing, who I used to work for, a couple weeks ago, and asked if I would like to review a book. And it looked kind of interesting, and the projects in it looked really pretty. And so I said, sure, I'll review the book and I'll give it away. And they were like, do you want me to send 2 copies so you can keep one and give one away? So the designer, Ashleigh Wempe, and I think it's Wempe, it's W-E-M-P-E, sent me 2 copies of her Mosaic knitting book. So one is for me and one is for you. And I'm going to talk about it just a little bit and what I have seen from it so far. And then I will give you a prompt so that you can enter a comment here on YouTube on the video. And then next week when I come back, next Monday on October 9th, I will go ahead and draw for a winner. It is a book, but I like to be open to everyone participating, so it doesn't matter where in the world you are. I will send you the copy of this book, or if it's going to be absolutely prohibitively expensive, I think there's an e-copy of this book. I will double check. Well, let me double check right now because I am sitting in front of my computer. Let's see if there is an e-copy of this book. Hang on just a second. Oof. Let's see. Ooh, that was not. Okay, I can't do it right now. I will either mail the hard copy to you, or worst case, I will purchase a soft copy for you. And I know shipping will be expensive, but that's fine. I want everyone to be able to enjoy this, so I don't want to restrict anyone. So this is called Mosaic Knitting, and Mosaic Knitting is a form of color work, and it's actually one of the most simple forms of color work because it is using only one color at once. So the way you, mosaic knitting is also sometimes called slip stitch knitting, and the deal is that on some rows you'll be slipping stitches of one color and knitting stitches of the other color, and then you'll be reversing it on the next row, or vice versa. I think a lot of mosaic knitting, if you're knitting flat, a lot of mosaic knitting patterns are knit in kind of 2-row increments. So the book is really beautiful. The front table of contents has like a listing of all the projects, and they're mostly, I would say, for the home, just because there are larger projects. Well, there are smaller and larger projects. There's no garments in here. We do have a cowl and a scarf, and otherwise there are some large blanket projects, some mug cozies, some coasters, some big blankets and rugs, and really some fun projects in here. So the first thing that Ashleigh does is she kind of takes you a little bit through what is mosaic knitting and talks a little bit about it. And the photography in this book is really great, and the colors that she chose for the yarns are really great. I think most of her yarn support was provided by Lion Brand, but of course you can knit these in anything. So she talks about kind of the basics and getting started, including cast-ons and bind-offs that work well with mosaic knitting, because generally in mosaic knitting you're either going to be working in stockinette or garter stitch, and sometimes a mix of both to highlight specific motifs. So she talks about how to read the written instructions, things like carrying your yarn up the side, because remember, like I said, you are working 1 or 2 rows in one color and slipping the other stitches, and then the next row you'll be working the other one. So for instance, on here you might be working in yellow and slipping your black, but then on the next set of rows you'll be working in black and slipping your yellow, and so you'll be creating patterns with that. So the other thing she talks about is she talks about charts, because oftentimes mosaic knitting is best achieved through charts. And part of the reason is because when you are working with 2 colors, it can be very cumbersome to say like knit 1 dark, knit 4 light, knit 1, or slip 1 dark, knit 4 light, slip 1 dark, etc. And so sometimes the pictures actually give you a really good idea of what's going on. And so she kind of diagrams out how those charts will look and how to read them and what they're saying. So I think all of that is really useful introduction. She does talk about tools and materials. She does some basic knit stitches and purl stitches, and some of that is in the front of the book, and some of it is also in the back of the book if you are brand new to knitting. But if you have knit before, and most of you who watch my podcast I think have, you'll have some reference for this. She talks about needles and other supplies you might find useful, like tape measures or needle gauges or scissors or tapestry needles for weaving in your ends, etc. So she does a little bit on choosing colors, which I think is always fun, how you can pick some colors that contrast with each other, because in mosaic knitting, generally you're looking for a contrast between the 2 colors. So one color is coming out more prominent and one color is sort of fading into the back, or vice versa. And a lot of mosaic knitting is very, because the knit stitch is very square shaped, it's very geometric, and the patterns, it often reminds me a lot of like Southwest or Native American styles in weaving, because it's very, you'll see what I mean. There are a lot of geometric shapes and repeating patterns. So next you go into the projects, and I'm going to show you some of these projects. I'm not going to show the charts and things like that because that is proprietary to the book, but there's really some beautiful photography. So you can see she has a couple different cushions in here. She has kind of a floor rug or mat. She's got kind of a runner, a couple blankets, really beautiful blankets, a wall hanging, and so there's just a lot of possibilities with mosaic knitting to create fun patterns. So I will just show you a few things. For instance, if you are really just getting started with mosaic knitting, she has these cute little coasters. And I don't know that most of us would necessarily need these, but if you are just getting started with mosaic knitting, I love when someone comes up with a little project that allows you to just kind of test out a technique and see if it's even something you enjoy. We always joke that, so when you start knitting, usually the first thing they have you start knitting is like a scarf. I think we all, well, okay, I know I started on a scarf because it was like long and rectangular and you could practice your stitches over and over, and that thing goes on forever. And so, for instance, when my niece started, I suggested that maybe what she do is she do a little square, like a doll blanket or something, because then you get to practice it and you get to finish it and you get to cast it off, and then you get to decide what's next for you. So I do think that those definitely have value as a testing your technique or even a giftable project. The one that I really like in here, oh, the other thing I wanted to say is she shows a lot of patterns in like the colors that she chose kind of to do the main object, but then she also shows it in alternate colors. So you can see how if you wanted more muted colors, it might play out, or if you wanted to add some stripes or other things in there. And so for almost every project, she has an alternate colorway, and I do think that's really nice because it shows off a lot of different combinations of pattern and color. So the one that I really like are the Desert Rose vanity towels, and I could totally see myself making these, either as kind of washcloths and towels in the bathroom or as dishcloths and towels in the kitchen. And I think she knit these, did she knit these with cotton? Yeah, she knit these with Lion Brand Pima cotton, so you could just get some Pima cotton and you could kind of easily make these, and it's got kind of a little rose pattern in there, but it's pretty simple. And you can see how you can kind of intersperse the colors, but on all of these, remember, you are only knitting with one color at a time, so you do not need to know how to hold yarn in both hands. You don't need, basically you are just picking up and dropping the yarn, and you're just carrying it up the side, and since you're changing color every row or every other row, you know, you don't even have to worry about the tension on the side. So she's got a variety of projects in here. Like I said, a lot of them are for the home, and then she showed, for instance, like this is the alternate colorway, and isn't that fun? It's like a green and a pink. So, and she's got one of those for every project in here. So I'm sorry, those I guess were for the bathroom. Then she also does the Zig and Zag kitchen cloths, which I think are super fun. I would most likely make these because I love having kitchen towels and dishcloths. So there's that. Let's see what else. She does have, she calls it the Berry Bramble floor mat. And so she does it in a variety of colors on the floor, and then she does some fringe on there. But the other thing she did in here, and this was one of the ones where I thought the alternate colorway was fun, she did an alternate colorway in just 2 tones. So if you wanted to keep it a little less vibrant, you could do it in 2 tones, you could make it muted, you could make it hugely contrasty, whatever you want. And you could test out a swatch just to see how you like your colors. So she's got a variety of blankets in here, including, this is the Diamond Crib Baby Blanket, which looks amazing. And I don't have, I'm working on my own baby blanket pattern, so I don't have a need for that right now, but it looks pretty good. This is kind of a fun one. This is the Dancing Aspen Scarf, and we saw some samples of how she started working this stitch. I do think this is kind of a really fun project, and it just gives it a little bit of visual interest. But as you can see, it's very geometric. So you're making the same shapes. It's probably a small pattern repeat just over and over and over. And so it would be pretty easy to do. And she did that in Lion Brand Basic Stitch, which is acrylic. It's worsted weight, but you could totally do it in any wool worsted weight. And then she worked up this fun alternative colorway for like bright pink if yellow is not your thing. So, and then she's got a couple small projects in here like mug cozies. So if you wanted to whip up a bunch of these for the holidays, you could certainly do that. And it's snuggly season and pumpkin spice latte and all of those kinds of things. So she's got a variety of those, and she works those up in 2-color and 3-color. She's got a really pretty cowl that, let me see if I can find the picture that shows. So I really like this one. And again, she used bright colors, but she also shows somewhat more muted colors. You could also just make this a 2-color pattern, I'm sure. There's no need to actually have to bring in a 3rd color, but I do like that it gives it a little bit of movement and fun. And this is just basic blocks. Like I said, you're making really basic geometric shapes, so it's pretty easy to do. So she's got a couple different pillow patterns, In here, we saw some of those cushions up at the front. She's got one that's just black and white and one that brings in more color and has a slightly smaller motif. Actually, I guess I should say, I don't know if this is yeah, they have slightly different names. One is the Bold Wild West pillow and one is the Tricolor Wild West pillow. So you also could probably do one side of each if you wanted to. And then she gets back into the most exciting ones, like kind of the bigger projects, the ones you can really sink your teeth into. I do like those. So she's got this really pretty shawl in here. Now, notice she uses, I guess she's probably using a color changing yarn. Yeah, she used Lion Brand Mandala. So you could use any kind of gradient yarn if you wanted to. You also could just make this 2-color. There's no need to have all the colors and make it crazy bright. I am an all the colors person, so I do like that. And I immediately was like, ooh, what do I have in gradients? Do I have any of my Freya gradient cakes anymore? And so I thought about this one as a potential project. And then she's got a couple blankets, and honestly, the oh, and look, she look at the alternate colorway for this. She put it in kind of polar color, like aurora and polar color, purples and blues, and it's just amazing. And I don't think it's showing up really well on screen, but you can still see the detail in there. It's a little more subtle at the bottom, but you can still see it. So, and that's for the shawl. And then she puts some of her biggest projects at the back. She's got what she calls the tic-tac-toe wall hanging. So that's a really pretty wall hanging that you could do in any colors to suit your decor. And then the final project is kind of the big one, and that's the saguaro blanket, and that's the cactus blanket. So, and it looks like she uses some color changing yarns in there as well as a background, and then uses kind of like a navy, or let's see. So she used a mandala ombre, and then she used woolies in the rainforest colorway, which looks to me like a dark teal in this light. So, and she did show it in like just a 2-color if you wanted to do a 2-color. So that is the book. At the back of the book, oh, sorry, there's one more. I went too fast. This is called the Saturday Morning Blanket. And this, again, has a lot of geometric shapes. And like I said, it reminds me of Native American shapes. It reminds me of almost like Incan pottery, or some of the this has a very Machu Picchu feel to me, and so it's just kind of fun, and I like the design elements, and you can add in as much color or as little color as you want. So, and then in the back of the book, she has some very, very basic on these are just very like basic knitting skills, like casting on and knitting and casting off and some of those kinds of things. And then there is an index for all the patterns in here. So I think this is a really kind of fun book, particularly if you want to start learning how to do mosaic knitting. There are some fun home projects. There's some little projects to start on to see if you even like it. And so, yeah, I think it's really great. This is, looks like it's produced by David and Charles Press. And it retails for $24.99. I was sent my 2 copies for free in exchange for my honest opinion, which is it looks like a fun book full of some fun projects, and, you know, kind of level up your skills a little bit and maybe even get you started designing some of your own. I mean, there's no worksheets in here to do that, but you might decide that you want to play with some of your own projects. But I think any of these would get you more comfortable with mosaic knitting. So this is my copy that I just flipped through. Your copy will be pristine, and I have that here for you. So I would say in the YouTube comment, and mostly I'm just asking you for a prompt just so you have something to comment on. Tell me if there was a pattern in this book that I went over that looked great to you. If not, tell me whether you've done mosaic knitting before, if you have a desire to learn mosaic knitting. Just tell me a little something about yourself and mosaic knitting, and I will I will use the random number generator to draw a winner and announce that on the next podcast, which will be Monday, October 9th. And then all I ask is your patience. Obviously, if you live overseas and you win, it will take it a few weeks to get to you, but I will ship it roughly right away. As soon as I hear back from you about your snail mail address, I will contact you via email or Ravelry or however else, and you'll let me know how best to receive it, and I'll even throw in some goodies from local goodies from here in Kansas City. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you again to Ashleigh Wempe and Stitchcraft Marketing for arranging for me to receive a copy and for you to receive a copy. And I hope that you'll find that a little bit interesting. So I think I have gone on long enough. It's 41 minutes. Oof! But I guess I actually had things to talk about today. So I will say until I see you again, I hope, I wish health for you. I wish crafty mojo. I wish some fun fall goings on. And I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping. And I'll see you next time. Bye.